2021 and can be viewed on the Norwich City Council website. In determining the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, that is the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The representations, including supporting information presented by all the parties, the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 National Guidance, and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. Let's grant the application as asked, modify the conditions of the license by altering or omitting or adding to them, reject the whole or part of the application, refuse to accept the proposed DPS. The subcommittee is asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must actually be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. The representations received appear to relate to issues that fall under the licensing objectives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have the applicant with us, Michael Femiola, and also his agent. I'll ask you to address the committee in a moment. And just for the benefit of the public, we have received a number of additional papers that all committee members have had a chance to read. Can you just confirm that, please? Yep, thank you. And David, is there anything you'd like to say about those papers?
No, Chair, just to flag in addition, I believe there has been an email from the police, 4th of March 2022, 1546, setting out precise wording on some of the conditions that's presented as part of the operating schedule. And I see that went to the councillors. And my understanding is that those words are proposed as part of the operating schedule, and therefore the police representations withdrawn.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And again, that's noted by the committee, and we also will have a discussion about those some of those conditions in due course. So I'll
just mention that the additional papers weren't served on two of the objectors, an Alex Davis and a Cassie Secker, because they never provided an email address, and because them papers come a little bit later, we couldn't actually get them to them two objectors. But I've served it on all the other objectors by email because they had email addresses.
Okay, so 5 of the 7 have received those additional
papers. Yeah.
Okay, David, does that affect the committee in any way?
I'd recommend proceeding, Chair. It is not clear that anybody's been disadvantaged if those persons had taken part or said, I need these papers, then we'd be actioning that, but they've done neither.
Okay, it's always really helpful if members of the public are able to attend, but we understand that sometimes they're not, and we will address some of their concerns through the committee. Okay, so Mr. Tempest, if you'd like to just introduce your relationship to the applicant, and then tell us about the application, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my name is Gavin, and I am a licensing consultant and represent the agent, as you described me, representing the applicant. What we're going to do, because we're both sitting side by side, is we're both going to say something, and Michael's going to just introduce what the business concept is and the background to it very quickly, and then I'll go on to some details about the operating schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for everyone's time today. My name is Michael Femiola, and the applicant. Basically, the idea for us is to turn the old dojo centre into a competitive socialising space. Competitive socialising is where there's a game or competition that forms a wider part of a social occasion. So the idea for us is to change the competitive socialising every quarter. So the first competitive socialising that we aim to put into the dojo centre is crazy golf. Sort of competitive socializing, and basically with that we're looking to put different golf courses which will match local businesses. So the idea is that we'll have golf courses that different sort of historic and new businesses in Norwich will be able to have like a hole each. And the idea for us is to have a wide demographic. Both families, and different people from the sort of wider area of Norwich. Previously the building has been a sort of martial arts and sort of social club from sort of 1970, but the previous sort of tenant has moved out, and the building is in quite disarray. So lots of work will be done to bring the building back up to scratch. And otherwise the building is quite hard to sort of rent out to someone else, because there lots of work needs to be done, and obviously the space is earmarked for development. So we are really trying to sort of add some value to the space, as we feel like we have done with the previously disused car park. Not only will we be sort of adding value to the actual building, but also we hope that we'll be adding value to the wider community, to offer a new space for them. The NR3 area is very up and coming, with lots of other great concepts coming here. There's also sort of 2 new student accommodation blocks, so 700 students going into the old passport office and 700 students going into the old electricity board warehouse. So we do feel like some of the comments raised about noise and anything else isn't completely valid, with lots of sort of new things coming into Duke Street and the wider area. Also, we will be employing up to 25 different people to the space. We'll be working with local contractors. So we've got a local pledge that will give preference to local contractors to make sure that we can sort of add value to the different contractors, as we did for the junkyard market when we have gone through any build phases there. And also we'll be sort of raising money for local good causes, as we have done with the junkyard market, and most recently Bacilla Bacon, 33,000 that we raised for their break ground campaign for their new centre.
Just stop there so we can just try and describe where, because it's quite a complicated layout. I think ideally we should have provided some sort of video tour in the absence of a site visit. So the current junkyard market occupies an outside space, and there's a gated entrance which is kept open into what is basically a large courtyard surrounded by the old St Mary's Works, most of which now is empty, and some of which has been used using temporary event notices for certain events across the course of the year, including this particular old dojo building. For example, in October last year, the Wild Paths, which was a live music event festival, which did ironically cause some local noise complaints, which were attributable for a while to the junkyard market. But the entrance to the building is accessed through the current junkyard operation. So you go into this courtyard where the junkyard food and drink is being enjoyed, and then an entry and exit structure it will be built. It'll be mainly out of scaffolding and constructed so that you can get into what at the moment is a glass fronted like a shed structure, which goes right into the center of that building, for which you can see the plans. So entry and exit is regulated. It's not, people are only coming, there is an emergency exit which comes out into the main car park further towards Duke Street, but customers will go into the current operation, and then I think you can just describe briefly how they would get access to the competitive socialising event from there.
Yeah, so customers will go up the staircase, as Gavin's mentioned. They'll then go take a left and go into where you'll see the sort of a bar area on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side, there'll be seating. The seating is there to allow for people to come maybe slightly earlier before the competitive socialising, which will be mainly upstairs. It will sort of act as almost a holding area, an area in which people can sort of wait if there's any delays or if they've arrived early, and in that space there'll also be smaller competitive socializing options, so things like electric darts and maybe a ball pit or something of that sort to also give a competitive socializing edge to the downstairs area. But as mentioned, the main area for competitive socializing will be, initially we plan on putting the golf course upstairs, members of the public will be able to go up the internal staircase and then into the upstairs area where there'll be the competitive socializing.
Okay, thank you. So just to summarise the application, the hours of operation are opening from 12 midday to 11 at night. It's quite, I think it's quite a modest proposal, and sale of alcohol will be from until 10:30. So there'll be a clear demarcation so that people who are drinking as part of the socialising and having games will stop at 10:30. So there's a half an hour for dispersal, and as Mike says, that will be back out through the courtyard area, which will be closed at 10 o'clock anyway. And live and recorded music or anything similar to that will be, the intention is to have that during the hours of operation. It's not the main reason for attracting people to the site, but it particularly, for example, some of the electronic games have their own amplified music, and it might be that there's some incidental music within the building as part of the attraction, as there is at the moment in the open space outside. So it is we think it's a well thought out application, and we're not asking for late hours, particularly for the sale of alcohol. And we have to balance the impact that the new business will have, so that it comes across as positive for not just for customers, but for people who may be affected by it because they live nearby. And to get to where we are now has taken 6 months. So originally I was contracted to draft this application last October, and we met with the police and then environmental protection, public protection on consecutive days, and showed them around the site to take feedback. And that feedback has been incorporated into the operating schedule, into the application. In addition to that, because we're aware and wanting to be good neighbours, that there are some concerned neighbours who are unhappy about having to live next door to a social space, we engaged with a colleague, Councillor Osborne, last November, so that we could go through the proposals with him, and he also had a full site visit. Now, at that stage, we wanted to make sure that people were aware of what's being proposed, and there was a further delay which took us into the new year on Jamie's recommendation that we write to local people to let them know what was proposed, and as a result of that, there was actually 2 letter drops. One of the letters I think members will have seen today, but on the 14th of January there were 122 letters which were hand delivered, and then I was in contact with the local representative again, and took some feedback that the survey which was accessed through that letter was quite complicated and technical to use. So a further letter with a different typeface and different, so it was a bit more noticeable, was delivered with the address of a web link to conduct that survey. So it was repeated on the 17th of January, and I won't be referring to it, but everything that's come off that survey has been recorded on a document, which is a jot form document, and the survey itself has also, I think, been shown to members. Just in terms of the operating conditions, we have worked closely with the police and taken advice from Richard Divey about what would work here and what to avoid. The original junkyard business was quite unique because it was set up during lockdown conditions for COVID-19, and the health and safety measures at the time were actually, there was no socializing indoors whatsoever. And the operator, I'm confidently say that they are experienced in handling changing circumstances as far as health regulations are concerned, and that is written into the first operating condition that will be flexible and adapt to those conditions, and we have experience of doing that. The installation of CCTV was extensively agreed with the police. We had a small delay over the condition that it will be placed in every part of the building, only because some parts of the building might not be brought into immediate use because the building has to be built and kitted out. But anyway, that is now in the condition, and an extensive CCTV system will be in operation prior to that it's opening up. There are additional measures put in place to make sure that nobody will leave the premises with alcohol. That is currently the situation in the outdoor operation. This is a separate premises license, but people will be coming out and leaving onto Duke Street in the same way that they do at the moment. So that it was important to include that into the operating conditions. And something that you members perhaps won't find in similar applications, that there will be a noise management plan, which the content of which will have to be signed off in effect by the local authority public protection team, and so you can be confident that any noise escape, either due to customer voices or which might aggregate, or noise escape because of the playing of any music or incidental activity, will be mitigated against through that plan. There are also additional conditions about making sure that each event, when it's open, will be risk assessed as regards providing registered door supervision, and that will be done in writing and made available. So it's an extensive schedule, and we hope that and feel confident actually that those extra conditions that have been offered will mitigate against the concerns that the 7 people felt that they needed to make representations about.
Okay, thank you. David had his hand up, so sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, David, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just, I didn't know whether Mr. Tempest was minded to rewrite page 19 of 50, your agenda. A noise management plan for the site shall be developed and submitted for approval to Norwich City Council Environmental Protection Team. I mean, it doesn't say that their approval is required. It doesn't say that the applicant is obliged to introduce what they suggest prior to opening. And you heard that Gavin, I think, used the word sign off.
Yeah.
And I'm just flagging that isn't there at the moment. It's extremely vague.
Yeah, David, I accept that isn't there at the moment, and it's a difficult situation because nobody from the public protection team is here, I don't think, and neither did they have chance because of other priorities to make a representation. But I can say that we, of course, will put those additional wording into the condition, because it's only by doing that will we be happy that at least the local authority is aware of what measures are going to be put in place to mitigate against any potential noise disruption, and that action will be taken. So prior to concluding, if we could just agree what that form, but we certainly agree to that.
Chair and members, we will try and sort out wording later. I would just flag at the moment, you've not had anything from the environmental health. It is not clear whether the premises will have sufficient structural soundproofing. I don't want the applicant to sign a blank check. That's not in their interests or yours. So at the moment, we'll see what wording we can use, but just to flag, as everybody knows, the lack of any assistance from public protection team is going to cause some difficulty today.
Okay, thank you for that, David. Mr. Tempest and Mr. Femiola, is there an associated planning application with this, or does the building already have planning for the purpose that you require it for?
Yeah, so planning will be sort of discussed both with the sort of planning office and our planning consultants before any work starts, or in fact the building opens. We'll make sure that we've got all the sort of planning processes and stuff in place. We will be contracting either One Planning or Lampro to discuss our sort of planning options. We've done site visits with both companies already, and it's just a case that we wanted to make sure that before we sort of took on those extra costs in planning, that we had the license and the permissions to sort of proceed with the next steps.
Yeah, there's a contractual relationship with the owner of the site, and we wouldn't want to overreach. We need to know that the business is possible before moving to next step.
Thank you. Members, of course, know that licensing and planning are separate, but following David's concerns there, it may be that planning mitigates some of that by the process ensuring that the premises is properly updated for noise. Okay, right, Mr. Tempest, we interrupted you to ask that question. Had you concluded your introduction, please?
Not quite. There's a very small bit. I'll keep it brief.
Okay, please continue.
We know that, this is a separate premises license to the current one, but we know that the local people, a very small number, it turns out, are concerned about the fact that another new business is opening up. So even though the current premises license, we're not looking at that, it would be to show that things have been going okay. It will be, we think it's relevant to make reference to some crime data, and there are two very low tech documents. I do apologize for that. The reason that I have to do it like that, I could go onto the police.uk website, but it will take probably about 20 minutes to go through it. And to display directly from that, I'd have to put 26 separate maps, which would just show a monthly one or two crimes. So the two documents, hopefully you have those.
Yes, we do. Yeah, members, we've had sight of those, the comparisons between the two periods.
So some things to say. First of all, I've just included anything that I could see would be relevant to what local people were concerned about. So in terms of crime classifications, those are crimes recorded as public order offences or antisocial behaviour. So they've been reported and they're accepted by the police that they are genuine. These things have happened, and then they're put onto this national mapping system, which unfortunately cannot be broken down to time of day or day of the week. So just because I've displayed these, let's say before and after the junkyard market pictures, we can't actually say that any of these are attributable to the fact that the junkyard market is there. All we can say is that if you look at 24 hours a day in these locations over those 2 yearly periods, this is what's happened. And the other thing is, it's a bit of a blunt tool, because where I've put handwritten crosses, how the system works is, if something's happened on Oak Street in Norwich, they have to put, and it just says I was on Oak Street and I saw somebody urinating in the street, they have to put it somewhere. So they always put it at the same place, which looks why, for example, around Norwich Central Baptist Church, looks like there's an awful lot going on, but it might not actually really be happening exactly there. So our case is that actually not much happens in this area that people are concerned enough to report to the police, and actually not much happens in this area at all. And there isn't, to me, I would argue there isn't any significant difference for the year and a month, 2 months after the junkyard market was there, as to what's happened in terms of crime and disorder in that area. But as I say, this is for a separate premises license, and just in terms of reassuring, because the people who took the time to make representations in interested parties aren't here, it seems, but you've seen what they had to say. A lot of it was about what their feelings about what they've seen in and around the junkyard market, and a lot of it is about the fact that it's difficult because, frankly, something new's opened up and something new is opening up in addition to that. So in terms of is the applicant a responsible license holder? Well, there have been public engagement events when local people have visited the site, and in fact one of the people making representations referred to that was on the 27th of July last year. And I won't go into detail unless you want me to, but a lot of things were discussed. It became quite heated by local people, I think. I wasn't there. But as a result of that, things were acted on that we wouldn't have otherwise known those things were issues, but time was taken to engage with local people, find out what their perceptions are about how things are going, and things were acted on. And that, in addition to making the effort to make sure before application that everybody, as far as possible in this area, gets to know what's going on and at least tell somebody prior to us going forward, we think shows a lot of due diligence and is evidence that the After Dark Promotions are a responsible license holder. And I'll stop at that point. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that comprehensive introduction. I'll ask members now to put any questions to the applicant, please. Who'd like to go first? Well, I'll start, and we'll talk about those crime figures first. So thank you for supplying those. I understand there were a couple of spikes in antisocial behaviour in July and May, July 2020 and May 2021, which actually coincided with quite a bit of activity down there with the other site. Is that correct?
For reasons that I tried to describe when I was talking about these pictures, I don't think we could conclude that anything that we're seeing on those maps, if that's what you're talking about, Chair, are attributable to anything that's going on with this business, the current business, or is there something else that you're aware of that happened?
Am I correct in saying that there are spikes in the number of not necessarily big spikes, but nevertheless spikes in July 2020 and May 2021?
I'm a bit sorry. It's probably me.
They're not shown on your map.
Oh, I see.
I
see.
They are publicly available figures.
Okay.
I understand.
Well, yeah. Well, July 2020 is before there was any junkyard market business in this area. There was nothing open that be affected by this hearing. The 2021, what happened in 2021 was 2 antisocial behaviour incidents reported and recorded around Norwich Central Baptist Church. That's what's recorded on the police crime figures.
Okay, thank you. I think the stats that I've seen go a little bit further afield, but and there are some routes through from this. However, moving on from that, there are David.
Hiya, Chair. You're referring to stats, and to be fair to the applicant, if you could assist with where the applicant could find those, that might be useful. As they're not on the papers, I don't think.
Okay, I independently obtained statistics, so therefore as I can't actually link to them currently, maybe the committee should ignore those. David.
Yes, Chair, unless we are able to take the applicant directly to them and perhaps give him a few minutes to read them, it would be best to discard them, I believe.
Okay, that's noted by myself, and the committee should also do so. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Sands, please.
Hi, I just have a question. You're kind of marketing the new venue as family friendly. Is that correct? As a family friendly venue?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Because what I've heard so far is that there's new student accommodation, and of course you're hoping to have people, students come across and use the venue as well. I guess my concern is under public safety, and in particular child protection and public safety. So if you're serving alcohol, and you're serving alcohol in the venue till 10:30 at night, what do you envisage putting in place to protect children who might be at the venue?
Yeah, I think when I referenced to the additional student accommodation, that was more in reference to the busyness of Duke Street, as opposed to being a direct sort of target market for us. I think my sort of comments about the two new student accommodation blocks, and also the extra third block that's going up next to the Premier Inn, was more in reference to the fact that Duke Street has become a busier street, and was more in reference to the any noise and disturbance. I live on Muspole Street myself, and over the years, I've seen a rise in the the busyness of Duke Street as a whole, especially with St Benedict Street not being as much of a through road, and obviously the car park, St Andrew's car park, being a main car park now for the city centre. Duke Street is a busy road from early in the morning until late at night. So that was more in reference to the student accommodation, as opposed to the building being a direct target for that student accommodation block that's opening. And in terms of all of the sort of safety measures for those people, I'll pass over to Gavin. But we have a lot of safety measures in place for the junkyard market and a lot of other licenses that we hold. So we're very experienced in that licensing process, and would make sure that we have those things in place. Sure.
Yeah, I think your question is how do you protect younger children in an environment that there are competitive games and alcohol?
Yes,
and the first thing is we are intending that it will be available for families, and that's why the opening hours will start at midday. And it will be wrong to say, if you've got same as if you go into Castle Mall and there's the competitive games in there, you will see families with children, and they're in there in the evening, and that is the same business model. It's just this is a bit broader and there's more.
Can I correct you there? I've seen the competitive games in Castle Mall. They don't serve alcohol at those competitive games. This is a different kind of event, business venture, if you like. So I agree that, okay, you would like families to be in there from midday onwards, but I'd like to know what you intend to put in place to ensure that the children are safe. Now, I don't know at what stage you envisage the adults to come in and start drinking alcohol, and being around the young children. I'm assuming they're all mixed in together. I don't know. I can't read that in your application. That is where my concern comes from.
Yeah. And so I think the answer to that will be to put in somewhere in the operating schedule conditions about age restrictions with when there are no adults present, because I think we're aiming to have family groups there into the evening. So to protect those children from harm within those family groups, we'd expect there'll be an adult or adults in the party.
Just to add to that as well, the concept at Castle Mall does in fact sell alcohol. That is part of their proposition, just to be clear. I did just double check on their website.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, if I just interrupt there, I do recall there are that we have seen other applications for similar concepts where alcohol licenses have been granted. Okay. However, the question about safety of children is still relevant. So if you'd like to think about some firmed up wording around that, Mr. Tempest, that would be handy. Sue, do you have any follow-ups?
Yeah, well, obviously, when I've been to Castle Mall, the only activities I've taken my class to do have been ones that were freely available out in the mall itself, not going into premises, because you wouldn't do that with a bunch of school
Yes,
children.
there's a couple of venues.
So that covers why I thought there was no alcohol sold. No, I think I would have concerns, and I would be very interested to see what is written and how you're going to achieve that, because it's not best will in the world. We would hope that the adults would, you know, take care of the children and be in charge, but it's not only them. There will be other adults who will be consuming alcohol around the children as well. So although we might assume that the adults in charge in the family group, you know, won't be over imbibing, shall we say, but there could be the situation where other adults are there enjoying themselves and so forth.
Jerry, if we can just go on mute for 2 minutes, I'm sure we could come up with a suitably worded condition while we're here, and then David maybe can sort of reflect back on that with any changes that have been offered as part of the discussion.
Yes, we could do that, or perhaps after a little more discussion, if there's anything else that you'd like to do, then we can take a comfort break and allow you to do that then.
Thank you.
So shall we press on just for the moment and see if and then take a break to do any of that work. Okay, so any further questions, Councillor Sands? Okay, we'll come back to you.
No, that's fine.
Okay, Councillor Giles, do you have any questions at the moment?
Yes, thanks, Chair. In relation to the dispersal policy that you agreed to under the police's requested conditions, could you provide more clarity as to what that dispersal policy will entail? Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, the dispersal policy will be agreed with the police. So we need to negotiate. Once we have a business, we need to negotiate what would be in that dispersal policy. But some of the things would be, the obvious things would be around signage, would be around having some sort of physical presence on the exit, so that there's an intervention to advise people to keep quiet and about their behaviour.
Okay, so just for clarity for the committee, you've agreed to a dispersal policy but haven't yet established what that dispersal policy will be. David, you indicated.
I'm getting slightly better at unmuting.
Yes.
It was again that the wording, I think it's currently the premises will operate a dispersal policy in place to reduce the impact of patrons leaving on residents. There's nothing there that says it has to be agreed with the police, nor anything there to say when it should come into effect.
Yes, so Mr. Tempest, again, if you'd like to note down that you may wish to firm up that wording and perhaps offer them as conditions. I don't know whether we need any detail or whether, David, we would leave that to the police to arrange.
Sorry, that's quite a difficult one, Chair, because of course it doesn't help the applicant to be told you must do whatever. It may turn out to be unworkable, as per my flagged concerns with a noise management plan. And unfair, therefore, to the applicant to say, we'll do whatever the police tell us to do. Yes, sorry, I'll leave it there. It is very difficult.
Okay, thank you. So that's noted by the committee, and I'm sure the applicant has noted that as well. Okay, so in your operating schedule on page 19, there's two areas: the public protection and the crime, where you've made some entries. There's no reference there at the moment to protecting the public from an ongoing issue that we have across the country and in this city regarding spiking. Have you given any thought to that, and how you may introduce measures to prevent to prevent spiking, antisocial behaviour around harassment and related matters, and basically what will be your policy, please?
Yes, so we actually are part of a new pilot scheme with the NNN, and we're spearheading that in Norwich. So across all of our events that we hold and also our venues that we operate, we have actually got test kits, and these test kits can be used and can be collected from our event. And in the event that someone was to come to one of our events or one of our venues, and they felt afterwards they'd been spiked, we've got a deal with a taxi company that we will send the kit out to them free of charge. And this kit then takes a urine sample, and if they think that they might have been spiked via a needle, they can take a swab of the area in which they feel like they may be a spike. So, for example, on the arm, that then goes off to the toxicology lab at the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital, who we're working with, and that can be done up to 7 days after attending one of our events or venues. That information, the results of that information is then not shared with us or the police, but is shared directly with the person. So in the event that perhaps they haven't been spiked with a drug that they thought they maybe have been spiked with, or they don't feel like they're going to get in trouble with anyone, or they feel like they're going to be laughed at or anything like that, those results are strictly just with them. And then in the event that they do want to share with the venue or the police, after seeing the results, they then can do that. In addition to that, we do have the stop tops. We would do staff training on vulnerability as well, and that is done with the Norwich Bid. Have got free training at the minute for venues, so our staff will be undertaking that training to make sure that they're spotting any situations that may arise to spiking. In addition to that, we will be making sure that we've got anti-spiking kit tops at our venue, widely available, as same as straws have been over the years in the venues, so that way it's not a case that someone has to ask. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. David, please. You're muted.
Honestly, once per committee, perhaps. Thank you. I didn't know whether the applicant, noting as he is what he's doing, was intended this as an offered condition or not.
Well, I understood the applicant was describing the measures that they're taking in their current venues and what is proposed for this. I wonder
which would make it an offered condition, and just some clarity there would be useful before I start noting that.
The only issue that we would have is obviously this is a pilot scheme, not a scheme that we're running or funding. So in the event that the pilot scheme didn't work, or they actually found that there was issues with the scheme, obviously this is a scheme run by the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. So it's not something that we have access to. Obviously the toxicology kits are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. So it's not something that we would be able to do privately. However, we're encouraging and attended meetings last Thursday around this. So as long as the scheme and pilot is still going on, we're more than happy to participate in it. But as for it being on condition, that's something that Gavin perhaps will be able to give further clarity on.
Yeah, I think it would be very, very unusual to offer a condition about something that there are too many variables to have control of. We have a condition about CCTV. We have condition about door supervision and the security plan, and the applicants answered the chair's question, I think, about what measures can be put in place. But to actually mandate those measures to be on the license, we don't think that will be a proportionate thing to do. That's how the approach will be made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a couple of things there. I don't think there was any suggestion of mandating at this stage. My question was designed to see whether it's an offered condition, and I believe the answer is no due to resource matters. But certainly there was no intention to give an indication this is likely to be a condition should a license be granted. There we go.
Yes, just for clarity for members of the public that may be watching, the conditions that are offered are what the committee will consider, and it is up to the applicant to either offer conditions or neglect to offer conditions as they see fit, according to their application. I've got a hand from Councillor Giles, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Michael. With regards to the spiking, obviously taking into account what you've just described as a pilot scheme, that you don't know what the future of that will entail. You also set out measures you were taking about training staff on identifying potential vulnerabilities. And I wondered whether that is something that you'd be prepared to offer as a voluntary condition.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no. So again, that's a scheme that's run by the bid. So again, it's something that, you know, as long as the bid is running it and we have access to it, we're happy to you know, participate in that. But obviously, for example, if that was you know, the scheme was no longer around, it would make it harder for us to do that. So in this case, you know, I'll refer back to Gavin, but I'd imagine that it would be a no to that.
Would you, apologies, I understand there's a lot of work going on at the moment with the police, various bodies and organisations and City Council as well regarding this issue. And I know that venues are very keen to take part. You may wish to consider as part of this application whether there is some wording surrounding the spiking issue that you could insert into your application that would satisfy the committee that there is you know, that there is a willingness to take the matter seriously, as we all have to do, and venues in particular have to do, and I know that all venues are willing to do that because it's a serious matter that needs to be addressed. So it's just some thoughts for the final application. Okay, any follow-ups to that, Councillor Giles or Councillor Sands or David?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll turn now to some of the objections that have been made, and I know that Mr. Tempest, you've covered some of them. So in the absence of those objectors, we'll just run through a few of the things that have been mentioned. Okay, so first of all, on page 30, so under public safety, there's a suggestion that people leave the venue, causing danger to themselves, it says here, and drivers on Duke Street. And under prevent public nuisance, it says junkyard failed to provide marshals and cleanup operations as required in accordance with their licence. So this is your the other operation that's on site. It's the committee notes that it's a separate entity. However, people will be leaving by entering and leaving by the same routes. Can you respond to that, please? That accusation regarding the current conditions on your other licence. Mr. Tempest, you're currently muted.
Yeah, so you know, with the first point, just to be clear, was around marshalling of the Duke Street area.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know, we still marshal the Duke Street area, but we had a message to our social media page asking from one of the residents. The marshal was standing outside and asking you know, people to you know, please respect the neighbours, and they were actually saying that was causing noise. So that because the marshal was standing in the same place, you know, on a sort of week-to-week basis, that it was causing extra noise. Actually asking people to be quiet. So we had to be careful in terms of how we're positioning the marshals, and so there was I guess perhaps a decrease in the presence of the marshals, because we were conscious that you know, there was a certain area that they had asked us about that, and obviously so there may have seemed to be a decrease in the number of marshals, but the marshals are still proportionate to the number of people that were leaving the junkyard site. Obviously, in the height of COVID, the number of people that were leaving the site are a lot greater than the number that are leaving now. We're seeing a lot more natural dispersion, so there's not the large number of people that were leaving at 10 o'clock. Obviously, previously, when there's been lockdown restrictions whereby venues had to shut at 10 o'clock and there was a blanket 10 o'clock curfew, people perhaps would that would be the end of the night, so they would stay right until the end. Now we're not seeing that as much, and so there is a more proportionate marshalling, and that also helps to reflect the feedback from the residents that there was issues with our team asking people to be quiet, similar to the issue around the site manager was saying by the tannoy, or not tannoy, by the speaker system at the end of the sessions, asking people to respect the residents when leaving. And one of the residents, that this is the feedback that came from the residents meeting, one of the residents actually asked if we could stop that because he could hear every time because of the voice. He could hear that, and actually it was causing more harm and noise. So we have to sort of take that feedback on board from the residents. Gavin.
Yeah, and just in relation to, I think it's James Bartram's comment about people leaving the site walking onto the road. First of all, it is a bit pejorative to say that that's routine. I don't know how anybody could say that without sort of just tracking everybody that leaves the site. And also, a bit like with marshals, how do you regulate people's behaviour who may have not have come from the junkyard market site? They might have come from the gatherers, they might have come from the Golden Star. How do you regulate people's behaviour once they leave the venue? And it's a balancing act, isn't it? So a proportionate thing to do would be to if there's a peak time, to make sure people leave quietly, and we've talked about dispersal policy. But the reality is there doesn't seem to be a direct link between people leaving the junkyard market and the increase in traffic that there has been anyway on Duke Street, and people causing a danger to themselves and other drivers. And I don't know how realistically anybody could control public behaviour out so far away from the site. Maybe David could advise on that.
I'll take the invitation. As just to remind everybody, statutory guidance, the behaviour of members of the public when outside the control of the licensee is a matter of personal responsibility. So I would query the amount of weight you're going to give the behaviour of members of the public when outside the control of the licensee.
Yes, and the committee should certainly note that. But just in response to Mr. Tempest there, I think that what we're hearing from members of the public here is what they're seeing, or what they're telling us they're seeing on a regular basis. And as far as I understand the representations that we've seen, it hasn't necessarily reduced in recent months, and certainly these complaints are all dated recently. Page 31, it says every Friday and Saturday night we hear large amounts of noise from people leaving junkyard market. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're off site at that point. We usually hear abusive things being shouted and bottles being smashed. There is, these are lived experiences of people in the area. So when you say that you can't quantify it, perhaps you can't, but we can actually understand that these people are living in an area that has become increasingly noisy, and that's the problem that they have. Can you respond to that, please?
Yes, I'll start by saying that lived experience isn't. I can see what people are saying. They aren't here for us to ask, but there can be a perception about things that aren't necessarily true. For example, James Maggle-Hayes talks about bottles being left on the windowsill, glass smashing. that no bottles leave the site. So there has to be it's a balance. People have a perception about what's going on, and we're trying to paint a picture with evidence from crime figures about the reality of what people have reported to the authorities. But some things genuinely are, people feel these are the case, but there might be an alternative reason for that perception, is my point.
Yeah, and to add to that, we actually put large investment into the site in terms of how we serve our products, and try to remove as much the sort of takeaway element of the site. So previously, when COVID was at its height, we obviously had to serve via plastic, so it was obviously not sustainable in terms of the environment, but also we had to weigh up the ability to wash things, and everyone kind of went back to sort of plastic cups. Now we everything's served in glass, so we don't have as much litter. I personally have done litter collections after the junkyard has shut, and there isn't a great number of stuff to collect. That litter collection is still very much going on. However, I would also note that our office is and my house is in the local area, and I walk on Duke Street every day, whether that's to go for lunch or to go back home, and Duke Street is full of rubbish, and that's Monday to Friday when I'm just walking around. So I note that perhaps residents would attribute that rubbish to us, but we don't serve cans of Coca-Cola or Dr. Pepper that I've seen just on my morning walk to the office today. And so yeah, I think it's unfair to say that we don't do a litter collection, because we do, and we don't serve bottles. So I don't see how bottles would be able to smash.
Councillor Giles wants to come in.
Okay, I'll ask Councillor Giles to come in a moment. When you do your litter picks, do you pick up all the litter, or do you leave stuff that's not associated with the site?
No, unfortunately, we pick up all the litter, and that's where we can start to fill up the rubbish bins. Obviously, note that Norfolk doesn't have any rubbish sites, so there is a quite considerable cost to filling up those bins. But yeah, we obviously don't pick and choose what rubbish we collect, because we know that rubbish is often attributed to us, and it's just not part of our policy, because then it would be hard when doing staff training to say, well, these are the rubbish that we'd have to outlay all the different sort of options of rubbish that they can pick up. So it's a lot easier and for easy clarity to know that we've done our obligations to just say to collect all the rubbish on Duke Street. So often we're picking up anything from sort of Dr. Pepper cans to bottles perhaps, or like for example, the other day I picked up a doner kebab. We don't sell doner kebabs, so it can't be attributed to us, but it was in a takeaway container. I went to the extent of actually opening the container, and that was on a Monday when I was walking to the office to check to make sure, and it was directly on Muspole Street outside our office, and it was a doner kebab. So yeah, we collect it, and we do that even in the week sometimes, in case we worry that someone has maybe missed a bit of rubbish on a Monday. We openly walk on Duke Street to check that there is nothing that could be attributed to us. So yeah, we do collect all the rubbish, in answer to your question.
Okay, thank you. And just for a note, I know that you say that you don't have bottles on site, and certainly people don't take them off site. That doesn't mean that your customers don't have them with them at the time. Okay, Councillor Giles, you had your hand up. Do you still have a question?
I took it down because I was going to ask about the allegations within the representations that the cleanup operations promised weren't being carried out, but I think Mr. Femiola has answered that question.
Yes, I think that's been covered to a point. I did note that in the last meeting we had for Junkyard Market, there was a condition offered that you would collect rubbish within a reasonable area. Do you think that you're covering a reasonable area, given that some of the representations say that litter is still there, and perhaps further afield?
Yeah, I'd say I personally would say yes. You know, we don't just do Duke Street. You know, we do the streets around, and we have we sent off that map to you know, the planning, and you know, so I would say yes. I'd also welcome, you know, if there's any areas in which residents feel like we don't you know, do that we should do. You know, I'm also open to that. You know, we do quite a large area already, so you know, adding an extra street wouldn't be a massive obligation to us. So I'm more than happy to do that. But obviously, as Gavin mentioned, there isn't residents here. But if there's an area, I can perhaps, I don't know if I should offer this, but I perhaps can resend the map that we currently you know, do, and if members believe that we should, you know, extend that, then I'm happy to look at that for sure.
Okay. I mean, the litter picking is associated with an existing license that we're not considering today, so it may be in your interest to work with members of the public to establish which roads they're concerned about, and then perhaps work with them and offer that service.
Yeah, we did do that on the 27th of July, which is why I was, you know, so on the 27th of July last year, we had the meeting with 20 local residents, some that were in support, and obviously some that were there to raise concerns. In that meeting on the 27th, where Jamie Osborne and Councillor Shinier were there, you know, we had an open discussion. We listened to residents. Their feedback that we were given was that on a Sunday, one of the residents said that she likes to sit in her garden, and so could we turn the music down on a Sunday? We did that. We went a step further and implemented a new sound system with even smaller speakers, with a £15,000 investment into even smaller speakers to make it even more contained. We obviously, as mentioned previously, we don't do the "please can respect our neighbours" call out onto the system anymore, because one of the residents came just only to say that was causing extra noise to him. And so in that meeting on the 27th, you know, we had further discussions with the residents. You know, we worked with, that was directly after our planning application, and once we got approval for that, we reached out straight away the following day to you know, Martin and Jamie to say that, like, you know, even though we have the planning, we want to work with you to overcome these residents' issues. And we actually set that meeting up, you know, we weren't under any obligation, but we set it up to really show that we want to be good neighbours. And we took on the feedback, and we we did a note of all of the you know, the feedback from residents, and then we replied in due course to Jamie and Martin to sort of say what we were going to do in response to those queries, so and concerns. So, you know, in that time, I think 24 residents came to that, but it was around that number. And, you know, we did talk about the litter collection, and you know, we had lots of positive responses to the litter collection, and lots of residents in that meeting noted that Duke Street had got you know, dirtier as such, you know, not just at the weekends, but in the week as well. So, you know, based on that meeting, I do feel like we have gone to you know, considerable effort to make sure that we you know, have got a concise.
Thank you. Okay, so regarding just the representation on 33 and 34, which you've referred to as that follows the meeting that you had with Councillor Osborne. It is a shame that Councillor Osborne and all the residents couldn't be with us to make these representations, but there are a number of action points that have come from that. So it says that the junkyard team will consider options for how they can address the issue of drunkenness. So in a moment, I'll ask you to respond to that and what action you will be taking. Junkyard will speak to health and safety about possibility of extending marshalling. Again, respond to that. I don't believe you need to speak to health and safety before increasing it. And the police, obviously that's a matter for the police, and the committee has noted that they've withdrawn their representation. Litter we have covered, and Finally, provision of taxis. So I understand also there's a condition under the other license that taxis should be collecting in a car park that was described in the previous application as set out for that purpose. And one of the complaints here is that taxis are waiting on Duke Street or close by, and groups are waiting there, noisily waiting for those taxis. Can you respond to those few points, please, as briefly as you can?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah. So in regards to the intoxication, every staff member that starts with us has done an undertaking training to spot that. In addition to that, there is site manager and also a deputy manager that patrols the site to spot any tables or members of the site that are over intoxicated. We don't, our pricing isn't aggressive in terms of we don't price our products, excessively cheap to encourage people to the site. We don't price ourselves in line with other people in the area to compete. And in regards to the taxi operation, we have spoke to local taxi companies to remind them that collection is inside that car park, and we have people outside at the end of the night to invite any cars into the site. So I'm unsure at where that has taken place. Perhaps that is in the daytime, when there isn't someone outside. But obviously we need more further clarity to understand, when the taxis are on Duke Street. Is it at night time? Is it during the daytime? But very much we have spoken to the taxi companies. We're in constant communication with them with regards to that. So I don't. Yeah.
So just on the issue of that Sally raised about drunkenness. So on the 30th of July, I came as an inspector, if you like, for my former time in the police, and did a covert and then an overt challenge to the operation, and was aware of there were door supervisors who were present and watched transactions with individual servers, and was as a result of that we was able to reiterate the things that Michael, the applicant's just said about staff training and procedures, and that took place. I mean, I thought the outstanding issue, I think, is that as Sally's mentioned, there was a meeting, and then the mechanism to feed back on actions was through the two councillors who were involved. But it's again about perceptions. There was action taken about the issue of drunkenness, including that due diligence check on the 30th of July. But in a way, all we can do is be judged by what's happened, and that what happened was the due diligence check and some reiteration that new staff needed to be trained, and the way that existing staff were operating, which took place. But that doesn't necessarily mean that any of these individuals would know that that's happened, unless that happened through the conduit of particularly Councillor Osborne in this case, but Martin was also involved in that meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure what weight the committee will give to your own investigations into an application that you're supporting and agenting. Okay, so page 39, there's another reference here to the concerned about being the application being a workaround to have a later opening, so 11 p.m. 7 days a week as opposed to 10, which it is now. Can you just describe how many times a week the junkyard market currently opens, and also why you've applied for 11 o'clock rather than sticking with the 10 o'clock that it currently has? Apologies for the noise.
Sorry, can you repeat that last bit? Sorry.
Apologies, my dog is barking. That's better. Sorry for that. Okay, so the question is, currently, when does the junkyard market open for benefit of members of the public and also the committee to consider? And also, why have you applied for 11 o'clock as a closing time rather than matching it to the current junkyard market timing of 10 o'clock?
Yes, the junkyard market currently is open Friday from 5 o'clock, and then it's open on a Saturday from 12 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And then on a Sunday, previously we had been open from midday again until 10 o'clock, matching the Saturday. However, after the resident meeting, we actually offered to shut at 7:30 instead on a Sunday to just try to show that we were there to make serious changes based on the feedback from residents. So we now shut at 7:30 on a Sunday.
Yeah, and I think you asked specifically about why the competitive socialising venue would want to stay up until 11. It's because it is a family leisure attraction within Norwich, where people are coming to enjoy family leisure attractions, and there is a market for it. It's indoors. It's not the same as the food and drink offer, where people have a fixed slot and would go away. It's actually people would enjoy a family trip to this, irrespective of whether they enjoy the food and drink. It's a separate thing, and it's not in. It's actually probably a tighter hour restriction than some of the other places that would offer competitive socialising. It's very modest. It's indoors. It's well regulated, and there's definitely a family market for that. Probably longer, actually, I think, but. Realistically, that's a proportionate time.
Yeah,
to finish.
Other sort of spaces in the city centre doing similar concepts, shut at 11 o'clock midweek, and then at the weekends from sort of midnight up until some go open until 1 a.m. So I think that the 11 o'clock showed that we're not there to extend it too far, but yeah, we still want to be able to make the business viable.
Okay, thank you. Well, it should be noted that the comparable venues, especially those that we talked about earlier, are in a different part of the city, and indeed not anywhere near this particular area. And I think the residents that have concerns about this, and presumably you can see why they've got concerns about people leaving at 10 o'clock 7 days a week, at 11 o'clock 7 days a week, when at the moment their main issue is with people leaving 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 2 of them at 10 o'clock. So can you address once again for the committee, so that we understand fully how you're going to mitigate the effects of people leaving the venue at 11 o'clock and right up to 11 o'clock 7 days a week?
Yeah, the 11 p.m. where there will be large groups of people, if there are large groups of people leaving, it will be on a Thursday, Friday or Saturday night. We've already talked about an additional condition about a dispersal plan and agreeing something with the police, which we can cover prior to the summing up, I think. So there will be a natural market for this, and there will be some holidays, for example, in the Easter holiday, where weekdays are more popular, but by and large, a bit like the junkyard market food offer, it's a license that would allow that activity, but it doesn't mean that they will use that activity 365 days a year in the same way that I think you don't do that for the food and drink offer, and in a way it will be targeted so that Thursday, Friday and Saturday are where people who want, and more people are going to come out for that destination activity.
Excuse me, Mr. Tembers, for interrupting. You're not really answering the question. The question is about mitigation of how you will ensure that people leaving the venue do so quietly up until 11 o'clock. Whereas at the moment, we're hearing from residents that that's not happening on the 3 days that you are open, and especially Friday and Saturday night.
Chair, it's open to you, but you did ask for stronger wording on the dispersal policy, but the applicant was probably thinking he'd have rather longer to do it than needing to answer you now, because we're covering the same thing. If you do want an immediate answer, it might be fair to the applicant to give him a 5-minute pause.
Okay, we'll hear from Councillor Giles first.
On the same point, I was going to ask to, what your response was to the amenity concerns raised by those in the local community about the 11 o'clock time on weekday nights. So that was going to be my question.
Okay, so we'll hear from Councillor Sands, please.
Yeah, mine's sort of a similar thing. I mean, if permission's granted for the new venture, once the venue is open, because we don't know how this is going to work, because it's not been opened up yet. We've had the junkyard market, and we've heard about that. Once it's open, would you then go back to local residents and make any necessary changes? So if we have residents that say, actually, do you know what, 7 days a week, 11 p.m, people dispersing is not working for me, would you then go back and do the kind of interaction that you did before?
So, in terms of, our relationship with the local residents, we would be more than happy to, have another meeting with the local residents, after, the venture's had some time to operate. I guess where the issues would arise is obviously adding that as a condition of the license. If a resident asks for something such as, can you please change to, only open until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it may not be viable. So it's to what weight would that meeting what weight would we be able to give that meeting? I mean, in terms of our operation, obviously we operate a lot of stuff in Norwich, so we're always looking to hold good relationships with all stakeholders. So, we would openly do the meeting. I think that is, is not a lie, because, after the planning meeting, we arranged separately with the councillors to speak to residents and held a meeting at the junkyard market site. So I think that it can be clear that we would do that. But in terms of what weight we can attribute to that, I think that's something that, either David or Gavin would maybe need to discuss with yourselves to see what weight we can give to that, because it's not part of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And I think on David's advice there, and apologies, Mr. Tempest, for interrupting you earlier. I was just attempting to try and prevent repetition and move on to some sort of more detail. So I think now is an opportunity for you to take a few minutes to create some detail and have a think about wording for both the under 18s policy that you've agreed under the police conditions, and also the dispersal policy. So how long would you like for that? We'll pause the meeting so that you can complete that exercise.
Is 10 minutes fair?
Shall we say 15? We'll have a 15-minute pause, and then we can have a comfort break as well. Okay, so we'll return at 12:30. David, please.
Chair, I didn't know if you also wanted to flag the noise management plan wording, which I think was also on the list.
Thank you. That's a good opportunity to do those three things. Please. Okay, so Leonie, I'll ask you to do the necessary with the live streaming, and members and other people present should turn their screens and audio off, please, and we'll come back at 12:30. Thank you. Okay, while we wait for people to return, just remind everyone present that we're still live streaming.
Yes, we are still live streaming, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we'll just wait for Councillor Giles to return. Mr. Tempest and Mr. Famiola, have you had enough time to come up with some wording?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone has returned now. So welcome back to Norwich City Council's licensing subcommittee, Tuesday, 22nd of March. We're considering the application for a grant of a license for a dojo in Junkyard Market, St Mary's Works. The applicant is about to present some wording for conditions related to their application. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So in agreement with the police, there already is an offered condition about age restriction. And Sue mentioned we perhaps need to go into some detail with conditions. So the current condition says management will have a policy related to under 18s on the premises. We propose to add two specific conditions in relation to age. The first being no customers under 18 will be allowed to stay on the premises after 7:30 p.m. That's the first one. The second one, customers under 18 will only be allowed on the premises when accompanied by an adult. So the three will go together. There'll be a policy, and then those two will be specific elements that we're saying we will stick to.
Okay, thank you. The other item was the dispersal policy.
I didn't know whether David wanted to come back and say.
Well, I think David will be noting those.
Okay.
As I said before, it's your application, and
Okay.
what you offer will be what we consider.
David is writing as fast as he can.
Yeah.
So first one, no customers under 18 to be allowed to stay on the premises after, was it 19:30? Sorry, that's not a suggestion. I may have written it down wrong. What
That's
was
correct.
the hour?
That's
19:30, yeah,
yeah.
lovely. No customers under 18 to be allowed on the premises unless in the company of an adult, was that? Or accompanied by?
Well, I wrote customers under 18 will only be allowed on the premises when accompanied by an adult, because that puts the onus of responsibility at the time somebody's coming in to make a check to see that they are A, how old they are, and B, that they've got an adult with them.
Okay. Do you wish to specify that further, or would you be comfortable? Okay.
Customers under 18 will be allowed on the premises only if accompanied by an adult.
Okay, so groups of 12 and 13-year-olds may be accompanied by an 18-year-old. Okay.
Yeah, but no, there'd be no.
Asking a question for clarity.
Yeah, there'd be no under 18-year-olds there after 7:30. So easy, that kind of is the best we think we can do to make sure it's a family rather than the children. Just to noise management plan, which David pointed out was a bit open-ended. So currently we have an offered condition, a noise management plan for the site shall be developed and submitted for approval to Norwich City Council Environmental Protection Team. We would like to add any recommendations of the Environmental Protection Team will be acted on. Simple as that.
David, are you content that that is an enforceable condition?
No, Chair, it's uncertain. I've no idea what acted on covers. It certainly doesn't mean will be agreed with. And to be fair and frank to the applicant, they may not be able to provide such a blank check in a difficult and unknown situation. But will be acted on, frankly, is so vague as to be unhelpful when enforcing.
We're going to have to ask you, Mr. Lowens, for legal advice as to what you would recommend would be an enforceable condition, because that, knowing how the relationship is at the moment with colleagues in environmental health, that is a reasonable and proportionate condition. If they are there, there was a noise issue that was so significant that it got to the top of their workload, we would sort that out. Yeah. But we have no control over how long it will take to get in touch with them, or how long it will take for them to respond, etc., etc. So to say we'll do it is what we came up with, but
just to say that doesn't say you'll do it. Acted on doesn't particularly confirm, comply with, doesn't say by what time. And Chair, members, I do not know whether the environmental protection team have the spare capacity to do this job. We know what the current situation is, which is why they didn't make a representation in the first place. It is for the applicant to satisfy you that their operating schedule will promote the licensing objectives, and it isn't for the licensing authority to provide somebody to assist them, at least not under the Licensing Act. If that is the offered condition, I have written it down.
We will offer, you've given us advice despite yourself, I'm afraid. We'll be compliant. Instead of will be acted on, any recommendations of the environmental protection team will be complied with within a reasonable time. That's what we're offering. That's the best we can come up with. And equally, we did have site meetings with Richard Divey, and we had an exchange of advice and took feedback, but he's not there to say that. So.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the dispersal policy now, and we'll come back to this. You're muted.
Sorry.
The current written condition is the premises will operate a dispersal policy to reduce the impact of patrons leaving on residents. We would offer a condition that signage will be displayed at the site advising customers to leave quietly and with respect for neighbours. And we will add a condition that all relevant website and social media material will include the message: customers are asked to respect the neighbours when leaving the site at the end of your experience. And we prepared to put in, I don't know how enforceable this is, but put in a condition that confirmation emails for event bookings will include the warning that customers should leave the site at the end of their experience with respect for neighbours. And in relation to taxis, well, just being brutally honest, it's difficult to control what taxi drivers do, but we can try and offer incentives to taxi companies to collect on site. So we're prepared to offer the condition to accommodate that. We will encourage local taxi companies to collect inside the site, and additionally messages to customers on social media and by email will advise that customer collection by taxi should be arranged inside the site.
Okay, thank you. David will be noting that down. So in relation to your social media, this condition suggests that you'll be volunteering to footnote all your social media posts with a notice. You're currently muted. I don't know if you're speaking amongst yourselves.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to just discuss with Gavin first. It won't be in every single social media post, but it will be put into the bio. The bio is sort of where we have frequently asked questions. It will also be on the frequently asked questions page of our site. To put it in every single post is probably not proportionate, and if that is how it came across, then apologies for that. But yeah, it will be put into the bio. We'll do social media posts, throughout the week, as we would to promote the activations, and perhaps we could so that will be how we will do it, to make sure that it's frequently in the right areas, but yeah, to put it in just every single post is probably not proportionate, but in graphics on the website and on social media posts throughout the week, such as Instagram stories and things like that. But in every single post, it might be a bit confusing.
Okay, just a word of caution. Then you have to be careful about your volunteered conditions, because it would be enforceable.
Chair, it's a bit painful, but if we could go through those, I wrote as fast as I could.
Yeah, well, just as we do that, Mr. Tempest, did you have time to think about potential around addressing the spiking issue, which is something I know that this committee really wants to address in the long term, and this is a good opportunity to do that.
Obviously, we've mentioned the pilot schemes, and so we will do that throughout the pilot scheme. However, that's obviously not a condition, but what we could do is put a condition on that we will undertake, make sure that our new staff members and current staff members have undertaken training in vulnerability. So I'm happy to offer that, because that's something that even if the scheme goes away, we can deal and speak and maybe perhaps create a custom scheme, or work with the people that are doing the scheme at present to create our own custom scheme, which we could then make the resources available to other licensees. If the training that the Norwich bid are doing stops, we would still have a training process. So happy to commit to that. It's something that we're obviously passionate about as well. So I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. So are you therefore offering a condition that you will create your own staff training scheme in this area for the benefit of staff?
Yeah, no. So what we're saying is all staff members will be undertake the Norwich bid training in vulnerability, which is currently on offer. In the event that training is no longer on offer, we would then create our own system. So what the condition that we can give is that all staff members will have training, whether that training is through our own custom built program, or whether it's through Norwich bid, is neither here or there. But we'll make sure that the training is there. But obviously, at the minute, Norwich bid are doing an amazing thing by, having the training free for all licensees. So we definitely want to take advantage of that. But in the event that training is no longer there, or there was changes to the training, or how many people can do it, we'd make sure that we had our own system in place to give that training to any new and current staff members.
Thank you for that. So I'll let David write that down.
Chair.
Once again, I know there's a lot of good work going on to try and prevent spiking and harassment generally. I would like to see our city have a zero tolerance policy to that, and I hope that the funding for that training continues for as long as possible.
So just running through the dispersal policy. Signage will be displayed at the site advising customers to leave quietly and with respect for neighbours. Of course, the site isn't the outdoor site, it's just the dojo. So I take it when you say site, you mean Junkie Market Dojo there?
The building, yeah. there already is a site. There already is a sign at the gates for the courtyard where the junkyard alcohol expert. So we're going to put one at the door separately as you leave the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All relevant, I think the word was, website and social media posts will have the addition of customers are asked to respect the neighbours when leaving the site at the end of your experience. Was that roughly as per?
Yes.
The acknowledgement of booking to include that customers should leave the site with respect for the neighbours.
Yes.
That's every acknowledgement of booking rather than, yep, okay. You will encourage local taxi firms to collect inside the site, and obviously the site there can't mean the dojo, so that means the junkyard.
That's the so the collection's actually in the site. So where junkyard is, there's actually a car park in front of the junkyard, so it would be in that site as opposed to taxi driving into the actual junkyard market.
Okay, the proposed wording, which is for you, not me, was inside the site. So over to you as to what was.
Let's put inside the St Mary's Works site, because that then refers to the wider site that is in operation. Just to be clear as well, on the social media posts, just because I don't know if I maybe misheard you, did you say on all social media posts is a condition? Because that's not something that we were offering. It was.
I wrote down what I thought you said was all relevant website and social media posts.
Okay, sorry, just to be clear, sorry.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Sands has her hand up. So just in case it's relevant to this, Sue, do you have a question at the moment?
I'm not sure if it's relevant to this.
Okay, so should we wait until after the conditions? Yeah, thank you.
So just to repeat the last one. We will encourage, so there'll be better wording, this is the idea, local taxi companies to collect inside the St Mary's Work site. Messages to customers on social media and email that customer collection should be arranged within the site. That'll be within St Mary's Works. Now, is messages to customers on social media and email too vague?
Sorry, just repeat that, please.
At the moment, I've got messages to customers, presumably by the business, on social media and email to include that customer collection should be arranged inside the St Mary's Works site.
If it's for easy clarity, we can add it into the bio, the Facebook bio, and we can add it into the frequently asked questions on the website. If you need immediate clarity,
Okay. Facebook bio and website will include that customer collection by taxi should be arranged inside the St Mary's Works site. And lastly, we will make sure that staff have training regarding drink spiking vulnerability.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you, David. Apologies for cutting in. Does the venue currently, or do you propose to have arrangements with a particular taxi firm for collection and providing taxis for your customers?
It's hard at the minute because obviously taxis are quite scarce at the minute. So it's previously perhaps you could have gone to Courtesy or ABC, but even Law Taxis no longer with us. And so to align it with just one taxi company with them being so vulnerable at the minute, it could put the business in jeopardy if one of the big taxi companies were no longer to operate or to merge with another company. So I'm not sure if that would be relevant or proportionate in this case.
Yeah, thank you. There is a major issue with supply of taxis and the number of drivers at the moment for a number of reasons. I guess that will make matters worse for members of the public if people are having to wait for their taxis for a long time. So the prospect of having the taxis waiting area and collection off site is I guess, attractive to those members of the public that have mentioned it.
Just to add to that, I do think that people in Norwich and across the UK have actually got used to the scarcity of taxis and do make for other provisions. So I do agree with your statement that it is harder to get taxis, and that could lead to more people sort of waiting around for taxis. But in addition, to counteract that, I would say that also people are used to not being able to get a taxi immediately now. So do plan ahead and also plan for other modes of transport. And in addition to that, the concept here is competitive socializing. The focus isn't solely on alcohol, where like a bar or a pub is, and so therefore lots of people would probably not drink at this sort of concept. And is the concept was built for the rise in people that no longer drink. So yeah, I think your statement's true, but I think that there's a certain level of validity to it.
Okay, thank you. So, David, do you need to address any more matters around the conditions that have been offered?
Chair, no, thank you. I hope I've got an adequate note of what the matters offered are.
Okay, and we can summarise those just before we make our determination. So, Councillor Sands, please.
Oh, thank you. Actually, all we're discussing today is very good and getting it all correct and so forth. And also thank you for making the provision for children leaving at 7:30. That's good. I like that one. But this is in effect more or less a temporary application, isn't it? Because the whole area is going to be redeveloped. I just wondered if you had any time frame of how long you're going to be operating the new venue, because it's not going to be forever, obviously.
Yeah, I mean that's something that is out of our hands. We basically, with the junkyard market and obviously hopefully the dojo centre, it's something that we're doing as a temporary fix to a problem, i.e. the building is going into somewhat disrepute, and so we're just going in as mean times usage. That's kind of where that's sort of our area of expertise in the field that we're moving into, is to be means times usage for both developers and empty spaces, to try to bring light to empty spaces before they're developed. Our ambitions aren't to stay there greater than when the site is empty. We plan our business on a 12-month basis. So we know that we'll be there for at least 12 months, but how far after that, we don't know. We would hope for at least a 2-year period, but again, we're not sure. To give you some reference, we will be putting in planning for the junkyard market. It comes up in May, and we're looking at options for that around a sort of a 2 or 3 year sort of change of view. So that might give some clarity in terms of how long. But for us, it could be a case that the site comes up for development, in 6 months' time, which would be unfortunate to our business plan, but it's something that our contracts with the developers would allow. So, we have a 1-month notice period within our contracts. So, it could go at any point. So it could go next month, which would mean obviously this project wouldn't come to light. But in reality, it's between a 1 and 3 year period, I would say. But obviously, I can't speak on behalf of the developers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we've discussed all the matters that have been raised by objectors, and David also with the conditions. So thank you for your responses on that. Are there any further questions from councillors? There are not. And David, is there anything you'd like to cover just before we hear from Mr. Tempest again?
Just for clarity, Chair, there's an agreed condition. Staff training will include CT awareness. Can't really write that's a condition. What does CT stand for, please?
Counter-terrorism.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just check my notes one more time and then ask any final questions. But Mr. Tempest, would you like to sum up for us, please? And then one final time, and then we'll have our determination. You're currently muted.
Thank you, Chair. In presenting this application, we really don't want to appear difficult or reluctant to accommodate additional licensing conditions. It's just about proportionality. And apologies to Mr. Lowens, it is important to be pragmatic, to convert ideas that we've had throughout the subcommittee hearing into reality, and that's the reason why we sort of spent a bit of time on it. So thank you. I would point to the applicant's willingness and desire to be good neighbours, and we have unfortunately had 7 people who felt it important to make representations. Quite frankly, we have to stick to the licensing objectives, and the operating conditions and the extensive conversation that we've had about it is intended to make sure that we are promoting those licensing objectives and to mitigate against that relatively small number of people who are dissatisfied. The applicant has satisfied responsible authority colleagues, notably the police, who would have a say, wouldn't they, about prevention of crime and disorder and public safety. And we feel that we've incorporated a lot of extra things to make sure, for example, the installation of CCTV and the detail on the noise management plan. So we are unable to speak in detail to the people that objected, and it's regrettable that that's left hanging, but we do leave this with a commitment from Michael and his team that will keep the dialogue open, with the aim of making sure that everybody is aware of what's going on, that this next junkyard market venture is a good one and will remain one for everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've, and you mentioned there that there's a relatively small number of objectors. It only takes one objection to create a situation for a hearing such as this, and actually 7 is a relatively high number compared with other applications we get. So I wouldn't underestimate or play down the objections that we've received from members of the public, and the committee will weight those accordingly, while also acknowledging that for one reason or another, none of those people were able to attend. And it is, in their absence, it is a shame that no members that represent the ward of Mancroft were able to attend as well, because we may have had some additional information which would have been useful to the committee. Okay, so I think we'll have our determination now. We'll consider everything that we've heard, including the objections from members of the public, and then we'll come back, and I think maybe we'll probably need to have around about 20 minutes to half an hour. So I'd say return no earlier than 1:20, please. So again, I'll ask Leonie to do the necessary, ask people to return in about 20 minutes. So.
I'll put members into a breakout room, and I'll put the applicant and licensing officer into the waiting room, so just bear with me.
Thank you.
Hi, Chair. We are still live. I'm just going to admit the applicant and Maxine back into the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back. We'll just wait for everybody to appear on screen. Thank you. Okay, so just a reminder to everybody that we're still live streaming. So welcome back to Licensing Subcommittee for Norwich City Council, Tuesday, 22nd of March. And this is part of the committee where we have the determination for application of grant of premises license for Junkyard Market Dojo, St Mary's Works in Norwich. Okay, so the determination of the committee is to grant the license as applied and amended through the committee, with the exception of one additional condition that David will talk about in a moment. As chair, my summing up is that the committee noted the conditions offered by the applicant relating to the noise management plan on site. In relation to off-site public nuisance noise, which is one of the main concerns and considerations of those that have offered their objections, we noted our statutory obligation to take account of guidance published under section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and the relevant section, the relevant part of that is 2.2 at the end of the documents on page 47 of our pack, and that paragraph states, beyond the immediate surrounding area of premises, these matters are the responsibility of individuals under the law. An individual who engages in antisocial behaviour is accountable in their own right. However, it would be perfectly reasonable for a licensing authority to impose a condition following relevant representation that requires the licence holder or club to place signs and exits from the building, encouraging patrons to be quiet. That has been offered, and it's not within the remit of this committee to impose time limits. However, it's something that we considered, but we were unable to do so in this committee, we felt. Okay, so David, if you could summarise the conditions that were offered and the new condition, please, and then explain the appeal process as well, please.
Thank you, Chair. So to summarise, and I say it's only a summary of reasons, the committee has noted the agreement of the police, the withdrawal of their representation, obviously relevant to crime and disorder. It's noted the amended conditions. It takes account of the section 182 guidance and obviously local guidance regarding personal responsibility. And it notes the conditions regarding noise management plan. The imposed condition is in respect of the noise management plan, and that is prior to the use of the premises license for the playing of live music, playing of recorded music, or the similar provision, the recommendations of environmental protection in respect of the management plan will be introduced fully. The reasons for that is the council at the moment doesn't have evidence as to the acceptability of live or recorded music, and is concerned regarding within a reasonable period could be insufficient to ensure the protection of the public. And it's aware obviously of the limited life of the intended premises use. So other conditions, as the chair's asked me to do the list again, no customers under 18 to be allowed to stay on the premises after 1930. Customers under 18 will be allowed on the premises only if accompanied by an adult. We had the recommendations of the Environmental Protection Team will be complied with within a reasonable time, and you've also heard that addition and amendment to that condition. Dispersal policy, signage will be displayed at the Junkyard Dojo advertising customers to leave quietly and with respect for neighbours. All relevant website and social media posts will note customers are asked to respect the neighbours when leaving the site at the end of your experience. Acknowledgements of booking to include that customers should leave the site with respect for the neighbours. You will encourage local taxi firms to collect inside the St Mary's Works site. Facebook bio and a website will mention the customer collection by taxi should be arranged inside the St Mary's Works site. The premises license holder will ensure that staff have training regarding drink spiking vulnerability. At least those are my notes. Does anyone think I got any of that wrong?
Okay, thank you. I'm noting that the agent is shaking his head to suggest that that is correct. Okay.
Just to flag appeal rights.
Yeah.
Obviously set out in the schedule of the Licensing Act. The applicant has professional advice and will be able to consider. And obviously any member of the public who has made a relevant representation who would like to say this is the wrong decision in summary may also appeal.
Okay, thank you. And just before we close the meeting, I thank everybody for coming today and giving full responses to questions from members of the committee. And just to remind members of the public that may be disappointed about this decision, that there is a reporting system available on norwich.gov.uk/report where a number of reports can be sent, and I would encourage members of the public to do so. We were unable to ascertain just how much reporting and how much of a problem is associated with this area or this site, but I would encourage members of the public to report all such incidents for all venues around the city that are causing a problem and may be in breach of their conditions or causing noise nuisance. The committee, as I said, was unable to restrict timing due to noise offsite because of the remit that the committee does not cover that. However, other committees may be able to do so. So just a strong reminder that there is a review process available for all licensed premises that may cause a problem. I encourage people to continue to report. So thank you. Mr. Tempest or Mr. Famiola, do you have any further questions before we close the meeting?
No, just obviously want to reiterate thanks for everyone's time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the meeting closed. Once again,